Today on Living by Design, he's the best-selling author of The Success Principles and the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, the one and only Jack Canfield, today on Living by Design. Imagine walking away from a 28-year executive management career in corporate America to pursue your passion of empowering the world, giving them the tools they need to live their dreams. The Living by Design show with Kathy Holloway Hill. Impactful, informative, empowering. Take a look at a few of the guests that have been on the show. It's your time to be living by design.
Welcome to Living by Design. I'm Kathy Holloway Hill, and recently I had an opportunity to sit down with Mr. Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul guy, via Skype. We had a great conversation because it is the 10th anniversary series of the Success Principles, and that's exactly what we talked about, were success principles for your life. Let's join the conversation in its entirety.
People living on Skid Row who've now used those principles and become super successful so that the average person can read this and go, oh my God, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Wow, I know that has to make you feel so good to know that you've changed millions of lives. I mean, you have been tagged as the world's best coach, so I know that has to feel good.
It does. It's very exciting. I'll tell you a funny story. I got an email about a year ago from a 15-year-old boy who said, my mother never reads books. She brought your book home, so I thought, I've got to read and see what my mom's reading. And so he said, I stayed up and read it for 3 days. He said, I was getting F's in school. I was smoking dope. I was getting drunk. I was hanging out with all the wrong kids. I was really in trouble. He says, now I'm getting A's and B's. I don't smoke anymore. I don't drink anymore. I'm going to all my classes. I'm not ditching anything, all because of your book. I thought, wow, if a 15-year-old could read that book and have that kind of response, you know, it just blew my mind. So yeah, I sleep really well at night knowing that we've made that kind of a difference in the world.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about here on the Living by Design show, Jack. I really try my best because I spent 28 years in a career that wasn't mine to really be in because I hated it for one. But I was good at that. I was good in math. So I had a technology career, but I hated it. And I just felt like I was in the wrong place. I did well because the money was good. And, you know, it's typically what we do. We get stuck in the golden handcuffs. Is that what they call it? And yeah, exactly. So, and of course, I read, you know, just about every Chicken Soup for the Soul series, whether it matched me or not, because I know you had Chicken Soup for the African-American soul and the female soul and the teenage soul and the parent soul and everyone's soul. I've read them all, whether they matched me or not. It didn't matter. I just wanted to read them.
Well, that's great. And that's what's so exciting now. There's 500 million books in the Chicken Soup series, 500 million. In China, they're using it to teach English to high school kids. They have English on one page, Chinese on the other. They sold over 350 million copies of Chicken Soup for the Soul books in China alone. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I think what's exciting about what you said is you got out of a career you didn't like into one you love. And I think so many people are suffering doing things they don't love. And I believe that you're wasting your life because half of your waking hours are spent at your job. And so in my book, I tell people how to get in touch with your true life purpose, how to create a vision of what you really want, how to turn that into goals, and then believe it's possible, and then take the action that's necessary to get to where you want to go. Nobody has to be suffering. Suffering is optional. Hard work is required, but suffering is optional.
That is so very true, Jack. Now, I know you have a 10th anniversary series for the Success Principles, right? So this is a whole different book from your original one?
It's actually the original book. There's 150 new pages, so it's longer. We have a new chapter on leadership. There's a chapter on how to network. We say your net worth equals your network. So how do you build your network? And there's 3 new chapters on success in the digital age, because people need to know how to crowdsource, crowdfund, manage your social image. When we wrote the first book, LinkedIn and Facebook and all those things weren't that popular back then. People didn't know how to use it to advance their career and advance their businesses. So we have a lot of information on that. And also we've updated a lot of the chapters where people had confusion about life purpose and about how to set goals correctly. There's new research. For example, if you set a goal and you don't write it down, you're 33% less likely to achieve it if you simply write it down. If you write it down and work out a plan, then you're going to be more successful. If you write it down, work out a plan, tell somebody you're committed to it. So a public declaration, and have a weekly accountability partner where you actually say, what am I doing to get to my goal, and what actions am I committing to for the following week? 43% more likely to achieve your goal. So most people never learn that. I went to school, you went to school, no one ever taught us that stuff. And so we have to educate ourselves now.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that's not being taught in our high schools and middle schools and even elementary schools. I mean, you can't be too young, because I don't know where I read it, but I read somewhere that our beliefs and our perception about life is set by age 5. So if we already have beliefs about who we are and what we can accomplish and what's right, what's wrong, and our self-esteem, because my self-esteem was low as far back as I can remember, and I had to work hard at it to get it to a healthy place. Why aren't they teaching these principles in schools? Do you know the answer to that?
Well, 2 reasons. Number one, the teachers haven't learned it themselves. It's not being taught in our educational institutions like our, schools of education. And secondly, everyone's afraid to give up time from reading and math and social studies and so forth. The whole No Child Left Behind made that kind of difficult. But where they are teaching it, I have schools where the principals have read my book, made every teacher read it, and now are teaching these principles to the kids. We've actually developed a curriculum called Self-Esteem in the Classroom. People can go to jackcanfield.com and find it if they want. But the reality is this is teachable. And where they're doing that, they're winning, awards for best school of the year. The kids are going on to college. They're not dropping out. Dropout rates have gone from like 50% down to like 6 or 7%. So we know that it works when you teach it.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about what it takes to be successful, I mean, we know emotional intelligence, and I think it was Jeff Goldman, I'm not sure who the psychologist was that really got emotional intelligence out there in mainstream America, but we know how critical that is, and that means that relationships, connecting with other people, is more of an indicator of success than your IQ. So I know math and science and all of that's important, but connecting and relating and building relationships is also important.
Well, I always tell people no one ever got divorced because they didn't memorize the 5 causes of the Civil War or the 5 major exports of Argentina. Exactly. And so we need to have a course in school called Life 101.
Right.
And it should be in every grade, where you learn to communicate, you learn how to manage your emotions, you learn how to set goals, you learn how to clarify your values, you learn how to persevere in the face of resistance, and all that stuff that we talk about in my book, the success principles, needs to be taught in schools. But since it's not, we as parents and we as people just being responsible for ourselves need to learn those principles and then share them with our children, apply them in our own lives, share them in our nonprofits, share them in our corporations, so that we can raise America up. The reason we have so much unemployment is not because there are not jobs. People haven't learned how to be entrepreneurial and create a job for themselves because they don't understand how to manage their life and set goals for themselves that they can achieve.
That is so true. And they also don't understand how to let go of their past pain. And that's one of the things that I talk a lot about in my classes and my coaching, is that past pain is actually your power. That's how you grow and learn and develop, is from that pain. But people they don't want to bring that to the surface. They want to push it down, pretend it didn't happen, make it go away. But that's your power. That's your lesson. That's where the lessons are.
People are afraid of what they're going to feel, and they're afraid they can't handle what they're going to feel. They don't want to ever experience that again. And when I used to have a psychotherapy practice years and years ago, now people would say, well, I'll cry forever. I said, no one's ever done that. If I get that angry, I'll explode. I said, we've never had to scrape anyone off the wall. The reality is you just have to learn that you can tolerate those feelings and go back. You said most of our beliefs and our self-image is set by the age of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, and that's true. However, it's not permanently set, and you know that as well with your work. We can change those beliefs. We can change those decisions we made as children. And, when we have more time after your first break, we'll come back and I'll tell you a very powerful story about a woman who did that.
Excellent. As a matter of fact, thank you for saying that, Jack, because we are right at our first break. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with the world-renowned Mr. Jack Canfield. Don't go anywhere.
Kathy Holloway Hill, founder and CEO of C. Holloway Hill Enterprises, is committed to providing her clients with the highest level of excellence with a special emphasis on employee branding. The greatest asset organizations possess are their people, and C. Holloway Hill Enterprises teaches you how to maximize their potential, which leads to reduced turnover, improved morale, and increased profits. Their youth programs will transform our young people into future leaders. Their services can be customized to meet your specific needs, and the metrics speak for themselves. So, if you're ready to receive results-oriented services, then let's get growing with C. Holloway Hill Enterprises today. Visit their website at www.chollowayhill.com or call 502-387-7701.
Welcome back to Living by Design. I am here with the magnificent Mr. Jack Canfield, and we were talking, Jack, before we went to break about that painful stuff that we all deal with in life that we really don't want to have any parts of. I had a ton of dysfunction in my childhood. I had abusive first marriage, and just the list goes on and on and on. If you live long enough, you'll have some. So help my viewers understand the importance of not allowing that to define you.
Well, we've all had difficulties growing up. I mean, my father was abusive, used to beat me. I used to hide in one of those old console radios, that were the big ones that would be as tall as your dining room table. I used to get in there and pull it back toward the wall so I wouldn't get beat up. And my second father was an alcoholic. My mother was an alcoholic. So we've all had our challenges, whatever they might be. Even growing up super rich can be very difficult. But the point, as we talked about, somewhere between the ages of 3 and 8, we have experiences where we decide we're not smart enough, we're not beautiful enough, we're not rich enough, we're not something enough, we're not lovable, not capable. And so I'll give you an example of how a life can be destroyed by that. I was working with a woman in a coaching program not too recently who grew up in a home where there was a recession in England, probably about the 1960s, somewhere in that range. And she said that her father said at dinner one night, "We don't have enough money to feed all the children." So she decided she was going to be one of the ones they fed. And he was just angry and blowing off steam, but she thought he meant it and she didn't want to die. So she became the perfect child. She kept her room clean. She got A's in school. She went out for every extracurricular sport activity. She became a perfectionist to her own demise. She was so miserable all the time because she was afraid she was going to be caught not being perfect, and then she was going to die. Now, when I interviewed her, she was in her late 40s. She was planning her own wedding, which no one should ever do. You have to have someone help you. She was on 4 boards of banks. She was very successful to the outer world. She was a consultant and all that, but she was miserable. And so literally, she was still living by that decision she made when she was 5 that she had to be perfect all the time or she would literally die. And so those are the kind of decisions when you find what that is. Basically, we go back and we heal that by having her adult self talk to her child self and tell her, your dad was just scared. He didn't know any better. But see, most people don't know that technology. They don't know how to turn their inner critic into an inner coach. They don't know how to heal the past. There's a chapter in my book called Heal the Past to Embrace the Future. And so like you were saying, this is critical. But here's the thing, most people don't realize all the tools are available. They're available with you as a coach. They're available with me as a coach, my coaching program, the books I write, the seminars I do, and hundreds of other books out there. You have to go out and find what it is and not be afraid to feel the feelings, to uncover the past, because you will get through it.
I'm so glad you're saying this, Jack, and I'm also very grateful that you're transparent enough to let our viewers know that you're human just like they are. We've all been through our pain. We've all had our dysfunctional past situations, whether it was in our childhood or a bad relationship or a job loss or a health issue. Whatever it is, we've all been through something. Every person has a story. And I know a lot of people don't believe that. They think you're successful now, so they think you've been successful forever, and that's not true. Typically, the people that are teaching these principles are the ones who are using their past pain to teach, because I teach from a place of experience and my past pain, because I have learned how to turn it into power. So that's what it's all about. You can turn that pain into power.
Well, also, you may remember Lisa Nichols was the co-author of the African American Soul, and she's also on to write other books, and she's an amazing woman. And she says your mess is your message. In other words, the mess you went through and the fact that you survived it That is the message you have to deliver to other people. That's what makes a good motivational speaker. Not someone who's spouting platitudes, but someone who's been where you are and can help you get out of that valley. Because we've all had it. I remember when I was going to graduate school, I was living on 21-cent dinners every night. 10-cent can of tomato paste, 11-cent bag of spaghetti noodles, garlic salt and water, and that's all I could afford. Now I live in a $6 million home, but it took a number of years to create that. The promise I make in my book, I don't care where you are, you can double your income, double your time off, have more balance, more fun, more joy in your life. One of the people that I write about in the second book, his sister gave him the book when he was living in a sober living house. He was on the street, got into the sober living house, thought he'd never get out of there. She gave him the book. He looked at me because I'm wearing a suit on the cover. He said, that guy can't relate to me. He finally read the first chapter, turned his life around. He started a landscaping business, got out of there, is now an entrepreneur, is teaching self-defense to women, and is a motivational speaker in his own town down in Virginia, all because of reading a book and then deciding to do what was in it.
Wow. That's a powerful story. I have a few of those of my own because, I try to, keep my appearance up, and I try to dress nice when I go out and do a motivational presentation. I don't use notes because I like to speak from the heart when I talk to people, especially a motivational presentation. And I get looks from people that, okay, so what do you know about struggle? And then when I start talking from that place of pain, that I have been there and I overcame it, people look at me very surprised, like, oh, well, you have a TV show, you have a radio show, you're successful, you wrote books. So I have pain too, and I overcame that. And that adversity is what makes us strong. And I'm so glad that your book is highlighting. And I know your book does, because you're one of the greats. So let me ask you this question, Jack, because I know there are so many people out there that are going to want to know, what are some of the first simple steps that they can take? Because I get that question all the time. So I want you to tell our viewers some simple, easy first steps, because I know your book takes them through just a roadmap. But what are some tiny, teeny little easy first steps for people who have just been through such severe pain?
Well, the first step is to take 100% responsibility for your life and realize that even as painful as it was, that you have to own excuse me, you have to own that you helped create it, promote it, or allow it. Maybe you created it, your husband beat you up, but you're the one that bought the alcohol and brought it home and let him drink it. You're the one who stayed in an abusive relationship. So that's the first part. The second part is to decide, where does there look like? The subtitle of my book is How to Get From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. And so where you want to be is like healthier, wealthier, more abundant, a nice house, great relationships, lots of free time, whatever it might be. You have to define your vision. What does it look like when you get there? And that's the biggest problem for most people. They've never really sat down and believed that they could create the ideal life. Now, it might take 3 years or 5 years to produce it. Sometimes you can do it in 1 or 2 years. But define, what is my vision of my ideal life? The third step is to break it down into specific measurable goals. And you do that by saying, okay, what do I want to achieve 3 months from now, 5 months from now, a year from now, and measure it. Like, I want to have my junior college degree by this date, or I want to lose this many pounds by this date. It always has to be by this date. How much by when? Because a vision, I'd like to live in a house by the ocean. We don't know what ocean. We don't know by when. We don't know what a big house means. All of that needs to be defined. And so you start with little baby goals just to prove you can do them. Sometimes it's just, I'm going to get out of bed and get dressed and go to work, or I'm going to write a letter of thank you to somebody, or I'm going to appreciate 5 friends. But basically little baby steps that will take you toward the goal you want to get to. Then you have to believe it's possible. That's why it's so important to read books like mine, to watch shows like yours, to hear the stories of people who actually did it, so you know it's possible for you as well. And then you've got to take action. And I teach the rule of 5. Do 5 specific action steps every day that will help you achieve your goal. It can be little things, but 5 a day. That's 35 a week. If you do that, if you take 35 steps a day, eventually you can get from LA to New York. But you've got to take consistent effort every day. Don't give up when you fail. You just learn stuff. Failure is learning, not it's not a stop sign. One of my friends says we are try, fail, learn, 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 try, succeed machines. And we have a lot of failures along the way. Don't get upset by that. But two things to end this little basic course with. Ask for feedback. See, feedback tells you I'm on course or not. How am I doing? If I were married to you, every week I would ask you this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the quality of our relationship? Anything less than a 10, I would say, what would it take to make it a 10? Most people never ask that because they're afraid of what they're going to hear. Ask your boss. Ask your children. And the last thing is persevere. Never, ever give up. Chicken Soup for the Soul was rejected by 144 publishers over 18 months before we ever got a yes. And then it was 14 months before we got on the bestseller list. But we did that rule of 5 every day from July of 93 to September of 94. And that was what it takes. You got to just keep on keeping on and never give up.
Wow. That's powerful. You know, I'm glad you said that about failure, because I always say failure is not final, it's feedback. And if you would just take that as feedback and learn from it and don't take it personally, you know, get your ego out of the way. I mean, you know, we let that daggone ego get in there, and all of a sudden we just get stuck in that one spot and we just can't move forward. So thank you for that. We're going to take a really quick break here, Jack, and we're going to come right back with some more very powerful nuggets from you. We'll be right back on Living by Design.
Kathy Holloway Hill, founder and CEO of C. Holloway Hill Enterprises, is committed to providing her clients with the highest level of excellence with a special emphasis on employee branding. The greatest asset organizations possess are their people, and C. Holloway Hill Enterprises teaches you how to maximize their potential, which leads to reduced turnover, improve morale, and increase profits. Their youth programs will transform our young people into future leaders. Their services can be customized to meet your specific needs, and the metrics speak for themselves. So, if you're ready to receive results-oriented services, then let's get growing with C. Holloway Hill Enterprises today. Visit their website at www.chollowayhill.com or call 502-387-7701.
Welcome back to Living by Design. We are here with the amazing Mr. Jack Canfield, and we're talking about his new book. It's the 10th anniversary of the Success Principles, how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And I love what you said, Jack, about do you know where you want to be? Because a lot of people don't know where they want to be. A lot of people just look at money. They want to have money. That's not a place. That's not a place, you know?
Right. Well, it's okay to have money goals, but you really have to ask yourself, if I had that money, what would I do with it? Because the brain doesn't really relate to money the same way it relates to a nice house, a good job, a relationship that's loving and nurturing and supportive and growth promoting and all that. So the more specific you can be in terms of even a house, how big, how many square feet, what's it look like around the house, how's it landscaped, what kind of job, doing what, with what kind of people, and what kind of place for what kind of salary. You always want to be specific. You know, a lot of people say, well, I want to lose weight. Well, exactly how much by when? You know, you got to be specific. I'll run a workshop and people, I say, what's your goal? More money. I have $1. I say, now you have more money. Are you happy? No, I wanted more than that. Well, how is the universe going to know? You did specific. And once you set a goal, this is really important. Once you set a goal, you need to visualize what it would look like if you were already there. And you need to do that every day for a couple of minutes. Now, I set 21 goals a year. I'm very advanced at this. Most people, if you set 5 or 6, that would be plenty. Set a goal for health, set a goal for wealth, set a goal for relationships, set a goal for fun things, whatever it is. When you set that goal, now let's say you've got 5 goals, put them on 3x5 cards. Make a list that you can look at every day. Read your goal, close your eyes, visualize your goal is already complete. Feel the feelings of what you'd feel if you were driving that car, living in that home, in that relationship, whatever it might be. Really look at it out through your eyes, what you would see if you were living that life. Maybe it's a bank balance. Maybe it's your hands on your steering wheel. Maybe it's walking into the front door of your house. Do that every day until the goal becomes real. Because what happens, the subconscious mind will then take over and come up with ideas, and that's the first thing it'll do, come with creative ideas. But also, it will program the bottom of your brain called the reticular system that will allow in things that were always in your environment that you never saw that will help you achieve your goal. For example, right now, you're not feeling what's going on in your right foot. But as soon as I say it, can you feel what's going on in your right foot? And so could all your viewers. So the reality is that was being filtered out at the bottom of the brainstem. And we are filtering out opportunities. We're filtering out a book that we might see in a bookstore. We're filtering out a sound that would come across the room where someone says, yeah, I'm hiring new people. We wouldn't even hear it. But it's just like a mother. She can sleep through the night. Sirens can go by. Her baby goes, eh, she wakes up because her reticular system is programmed to hear that sound because it's for the survival of her child. So we have to program our brain to perceive that which will achieve what we want. Right now, your brain's only programmed to give you what you currently have. So we have to change that programming through visualization. And that's a skill that we never learned that in school. Whoever taught us that? Nobody. But that's how you program your brain for success.
Wow, that's powerful. That is so very true. I mean, I'm enjoying this. I'm learning so much from you. Can you just talk a little bit about comfort zone? Because we know that comfort zone is where people get stuck and that place. Well, I don't even like calling it that because most of the time it's not comfortable. It's just a place of familiarity. So you get in that place of familiarity and you just don't want to move out of it because you're comfortable. You're familiar. So how can they get out of that?
So how do we get out of it? We just talked about it. What you do, your comfort zone is what you usually see. Your brain is programmed to keep producing that. If you close your eyes and you visualize something that's at a higher level, better clothes, better job, better relationship, better house, whatever, that will become your new comfort zone. What you're currently living will start to feel uncomfortable. But that's why you have to do it every single day. First thing in the morning, right before you go to bed. Just getting over a cold. Sorry about that. So what happens is if you do that in the morning at night, when you first wake up, your brain is in the alpha wave system. Like right now you're in I think beta. You're out here. When you're deep sleep, you're in delta. That's the wave. It changes. And when you're in that alpha brainwave, is that just twilight, you're waking up or just going to sleep? When you meditate, when you pray, that's when you want to input these visions, these visualizations. So do that at night right before you go to bed and do it in the morning when you first wake up. And that will change your comfort zone. The other thing to do, obviously, is put yourself where it is uncomfortable and perfectly stay there. So let's say you're uncomfortable being at a Ritz-Carlton because you've always stayed at a Holiday Inn. What you want to do, go sit in the lobby, buy a drink at the bar, go test drive a Mercedes. Tell them you're going to do a wedding at their hotel and you'd like to see the bridal suite. Go sit in there and tell them, well, I don't know if this is going to be good enough for my sister. But you can get into a lot of places and just kind of get comfortable being uncomfortable.
That is great advice because I'm a walking example. I had a horrible phobia of public speaking, a horrible phobia. Yeah, well, I actually wanted to be a writer. And a very, very dear friend of mine who was in, we need to talk about that support system, a very dear friend of mine who was a great support individual told me, you got to get comfortable with telling your story. I mean, you've been on a journey. We all have a journey, and you've got to get comfortable talking about that. And I wanted this so badly, Jack, that I did exactly what you said.
I hope you enjoyed this entire episode of Living by Design with Mr. Jack Canfield. And make sure you go out there and do whatever you have to do to make your own success principles. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.